Today in my writing process playlist, I'm going to talk about a mystery and pre-writing. In my last video, I talked about emic-etic rites, which is a kind of proto-outline that details these mystery rites of Eleusis, which is a 9-day kind of ritual. This was necessary for me to start understanding the structure of my story. So I did that. You can check that video out if you want to know more about that. But after doing it, I realized that I had to make a second proto-outline, which defines the mystery in my story. What I mean by that, I don't mean a crime mystery. I mean more of like a dive into the uncanny, where it's going to be done in a kind of noir manner. So noir has key elements, but I'm straying away from these elements. So the first thing is I'm going to have no crime. This is an existential mystery. The mystery has to do with the identity of this person. There's going to be no modern cityscape, which is usually traditional for noir, at least cityscape as we know it. I don't want to say too much about that and give away part of the plot, but it's going to be a different environment. And what I do want to do, though, is have the feeling and tone, the mood of a noir. What I'm trying to do here is divide the outline into 3 acts, which you can see here. I have the acts. But what I'm really trying to do is figure out the broad strokes of this mystery and how it relates to the last outline that I did, the emic-etic outline, proto-outline. So what I'm trying to do here is use some of that information. If I scroll down here, you can see that I have some of the days in the ritual sort of carved out, but I'm including some notes on some of those things, but then other things I don't really know yet, and I will know that probably once I make my characters. But what I'm basically trying to do is combine that outline with this newer one that is incorporating these different evolutions of the character that I'm going to talk about more when I get into the actual outlining phase of this series, which should be in a few more videos. But one of those videos is going to be on the hero's journey, and I'm incorporating some of that in here already. But what I'm trying to do mostly is just get this broad idea of where this is going. As you can see, it's not very long, but I definitely think it will help me in terms of wrapping my head around the ideas. I will be adding to this up until the point when I'm making my actual final outline, which will incorporate these 2 proto-outlines that I've done, and then a few other components that I'm working on kind of behind the scenes. But all those things eventually will meld together to make the final outline. Hopefully, having done the work on these, that outline will be easier to create. So if that makes sense, that's kind of why I'm doing it, is to make my life easier in the long run. So for the second half of this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about pre-writing. And I think it's something like organizing. It is important to be doing it throughout your entire writing process, really. And what it is kind of like, I don't really call it free writing per se, because free writing usually has kind of a prompt, or, you know, I guess it's sort of stream of consciousness, but often in my case, I start with a kernel of an idea and then I kind of expand it. But often I don't know where it goes. You know, it might be at the end of the story, the beginning, and the middle. sometimes I just start writing things I just don't really know. But when I'm in this mode, I specifically use Scrivener. And the reason I do, if you go up on your Scrivener tab here and you hit enter full screen, composition mode, it brings you into this nice typewriter scroll, which is beautiful because it blocks out all the rest of your desktop. And I really love this because then I'm not distracted. I will say that when I get further into the writing process, the actual writing process, the time when I want to like really look at the vocabulary and everything like that, I will take my files from Scrivener and I will actually import it into Microsoft Word. I just like the interface a little bit better when I'm in the actual down and dirty writing process. But here, what I do is, occasionally I'll get an idea, maybe late at night, or I'll have a dream, or I'll see something in a book or a vocabulary word and it'll kind of prompt me. I'll think of lines like this one at the top just kind of popped into my head. And I kind of want the beginning to be a montage, so I put a little note here. Now this isn't exactly the beginning of my book, it's just things that are popping into my head first. So, I'll take some time and I'll write them down. Maybe close to bedtime, I might have 10 or 15 minutes here or there where I can just kind of speed write. The faster you write them, often the better it will be. In this case, I had a dream of pianos on fire on a beach, and it really startled me, and I woke up and I actually think it was very important for this book. So I wrote down as much as I could, thinking about the pianos and stuff, and I'm going to expand that at some point, but I just jotted it down. Some dialogue that just kind of came. I don't really know where it came from and why it's there, but I don't second guess those things. If something just kind of happens or comes out of me, I'll write it down at the very least. It might turn into something else as I go along, or it might just be straight from my head and be great, but that's usually not the case. But I know this, that if I don't write it down, I lost it. And once you lose it, you don't get it back. So it's best to try to get it on the page and just see what you can do with it from there. So like a lot of this dialogue is just stuff that popped into my head recently. A little speech here that I came up with when I was researching another video actually about Gnosticism. So just little things like this. And once I start getting closer to the writing process, I'll probably start devoting a certain amount of time a day to just free write. Right now I'm not doing that because I'm spending most of that time researching and preparing. But once I get closer to that time where I'm actually going to be in full-on writing mode, because when I do that, I'm going to have daily word counts I have to meet and a monthly word count goal. So I need to know as much as possible when I get to that point. And doing this can help because once I get into that situation and I have a daily word count, I need to produce. And if I have these little things, I can kind of plug them in and then write from those and expand them and meet my word count. And of course, once I do the second and third drafts, it gets tightened up and some things get cut out and I'm rewriting it by that point. But like in the early draft, you need all the help you can get, I think. And like I said in a previous video, you don't always do things logically. So like I might do something from the end or in the middle or in the beginning, or I might think it's the beginning, but it ends up not being the beginning because something is moved there. You just never know until you really get into it. But right now, this is just my free writing process. And you could do prompts. You can use random word generators to put down a random word and write from there. Or if you want to go on the internet, there are thousands of writing prompts on there if you don't have any ideas. Unfortunately, I never have that problem. I usually have too many ideas. which sounds like a blessing, but it's actually kind of a curse because, you know, when you have so many ideas, you have to figure out what's good and you have to kind of hone it in or rein it in, and that's not always easy. So some people, you know, they have very few ideas and some people have too many ideas. If you're someone that's in the middle, you're lucky, I think. But my mind races a mile a minute and I'm always thinking of something. So usually I want to write it down just so I have it. Maybe I'll eject it later, maybe not. Anyway, this is my free writing process, and that's kind of what I do with it. At this delicate time at the beginning, your story is kind of blurry and it's coming into focus. So you're trying to see through the fog or the haze. And I think pre-writing can really help with that. Here are some pre-writing strategies. You can do it from your experiences or observations. You can just do standard free writing. You can ask questions, the 5 W questions, who, what, where, etc., and the 1 how question. You can do brainstorming or mind mapping different ideas. You don't have to use actual diagrams to do these things. You can just kind of do them with words. You don't really need to draw it out. Sometimes I will do dreams, like I said before, or different prompts. What would my character be thinking right now? Or, you know, what would he do in this situation or that situation? I use all of these different things at different points. However, at this stage of the production, I usually focus mostly on dreams or prompts based off of ideas, vocabulary, little snippets of dialogue, etc. Most of the time I don't know where these fit. Some I do, some I don't. I will figure that out as I go along. Okay, so in my next video, I will be diving into how to flesh out my protagonist. I have 3 more videos in the ideation stage of this playlist, and then I'm going to move on to the outline stage. The next 3 videos are going to be protagonist. Then for number 9 in this playlist, I'm going to talk about secondary characters. I have 2 women that are kind of the triad of my main characters. I'm calling them secondary because they're separate from the protagonist, but I'm going to focus in on those 2. And then in my 10th video, I'm going to talk about tertiary characters. And in the case of my story, there is an antagonist, but he is not like a Batman and Joker kind of antagonist. It is more a tertiary character that's off in the shadows. But I'm going to talk a bit about him and a few of the other not as important characters, but ones that I still need to figure out their place in this. So after that, I'm going to start my outlining phase, and I'll have several videos on outlining, starting with the hero's journey and then on and on. So if you like anything that you've seen here, you can hit the buttons, share it, whatever you want. Comment if there's anything you agree or disagree with. But that's about all I have for today. Have a good day. Take care.